It's the week 7 edition of the Phil Steele Show. We are live on YouTube on the Varsity channel. I'm Trip Hurd with David Kahn. And as always, we've got the best in the business, Phil Steele, alongside. If you're with us live, feel free to jump in that chat. Give us some picks. Thank you for all the views. We had another great last week on YouTube. If you want picks, if you want analysis of a lot of games to get you set for the weekend, we've got you covered. Phil, your top three, they've gone 2-1 the last 2 weeks. However, depending on when you listened or watched the show, you might be 2-0-1. You might be 3-0 last week, depending on whatever number you got with Nebraska. We're in week 7. We're almost halfway home. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Can't believe it's week 7 already, but looking forward to a lot of good football in October here.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. David Kahn, you are not in your normal spot in Winston-Salem today. Tell the folks where you're at this week.
Yeah, so I'm on a little vacation trip, but it's a sports vacation because, Phil, where would you go in the fall if you weren't going to go watch a college football game? So I am in the great city of New Orleans, Louisiana, to watch my Tulane Green Wave take care of East Carolina tonight at Yeoman Stadium. It's going to be packed. It's going to be electric, and I'm going to be in the stands. My first Tulane game at home since I was a student back here in 2016. So very excited about that. I'm in my hotel room. I tried to get into Yeoman Stadium, but Tulane's too good now. They've got that place locked up like Fort Knoxville, so I couldn't get you the view. I tried for you, but I'm in the hotel room instead. Happy to be here. Let's talk ball.
Didn't realize you were going to sneak in there, David. That's a risky plan you had there. By the way, David and I both wearing our Homefield gear. That's our sponsor right now, Homefield Apparel. This quarter zip, Florida State. We'll talk about my Knowles later. I realized what happened last week, but man, this stuff is so nice, so soft. It's like you're walking around in a cloud. David, tell them about Homefield.
Yeah, so first of all, Trip, I want to let you know that there's some more really nice stuff on the way from Homefield Apparel that they're releasing tomorrow because they've got varsity jackets dropping for 15 schools at 10 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. You got Arizona State, Alabama, Auburn, Indiana, Kentucky, both Michigan schools, the big ones, Oklahoma, Oregon, Penn State, Purdue, Tennessee, Texas, UConn, and Washington. They've got varsity jackets dropping for all those schools tomorrow at 10 a.m. Go to homefieldapparel.com to find those. You can find them on social media. They have quality, thoughtful apparel for over 190 colleges and universities. Homefieldapparel.com is the place to go. Use our promo code PHIL15 for 15% off your order at Homefield.
Absolutely. Go to Homefield, check it out. Jesse in the chat's already said he gets to go see Alabama, Missouri this weekend. So you're not the only one getting to take in some action,
Let's go,
David. But why don't you go ahead and take us away? That's the first game on the slate for us since we're doing the show Thursday. Let's hear about ECU and Tulane.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is it's not the first game of the week because we had some Wednesday games this past week. So let's go to Thursday though. Let's go to tonight. Tulane hosting East Carolina. Both these teams off a bye. Both quarterbacks having a good season. Jake Retzlaff more with his legs. Caden Hauser with his arm. Home field tonight could play a factor here too. Really tight, close stadium, primetime ESPN. The Tulane crowd will show up, Phil, and Tulane is favored by just under a touchdown. What do you got here?
Yeah, the fact it's under a touchdown has me leaning with Tulane. East Carolina's playing real good football this year. They have had a couple of games like the BYU game, which they lost by 21 at home. But other than that, they played exceptionally well. In fact, their last game, beating Army 28-6 like they did. I was very impressed with the Pirates. But this one's on the road. Tulane's extremely tough at home. The Duke game turned out close at the end, 34-27. But really, Tulane led big the majority of that game. And I also clubbed Northwestern 23-3. So I like Tulane minus the points and tried to get it under a touchdown if you can.
All right, one more kick on Thursday that we'll talk about. Southern Miss on the road at Georgia Southern. 8 o'clock kick in Statesboro. Southern Miss 3-2 straight up and against the spread. But the only losses were in the opener against an SEC team, Mississippi State, and the other against Louisiana Tech, who's just been maybe the best spread team in the country so far this season. Looking at the other side, Georgia Southern, though, 2-3 straight up, but the 2 wins have come at home. They've been good at home, and they covered in both of those contests. Phil, who do you like here?
Yeah, I think this is a toss-up type of game, so I'm going to lean with the underdog in it. And you hit it right on the head, Trip. You look at Georgia Southern. While they're 2-3, the three road losses are at Fresno State, at USC, and at James Madison. Very tough trips. Two of them at the state of California, where they stayed for 2 weeks. But at home, they've been solid. They beat Jacksonville State and Maine. And this is a Georgia Southern team that still is a contender in the Sun Belt Conference. Now, Southern Miss is basically Marshall from last year. Braylon Braxton's here. He brought over his receiving core with him from Marshall, and they've been playing like it this year. Marshall, of course, won the Sun Belt Championship last season. They knocked off App State at home, but this one's on the road where they have lost at Louisiana Tech in their only other road game. So I'm going to say the home field advantage is the biggest factor here. I'm taking the home dog, and I saw some 3.5s across out there this morning. So try to get the 3.5 if you can.
All right, so Phil says shop around, get that 3.5 if you're looking at Southern Miss and Georgia Southern on Thursday. Let's go to Friday, Phil. Another American game. This one a classic. Number 24, South Florida at North Texas. Both these teams won their openers in the American. North Texas 5-0, South Florida 4-1. Big time game in terms of who goes to the American title game. Both these teams are putting up major points, and the over-under reflects that at 66.5. USF 54 plus in each of their last 2 games. North Texas 33 plus in all 5 games. Are we in for a shootout tonight, Phil, or is defense going to play a factor? Or tomorrow, or is defense going to play a factor?
Yeah, I think it will be a high-scoring game, and you look at North Texas. I love the balance that they have on offense. Running the football, they're averaging 5 yards per carry. They're only allowing 5 sacks. Drew Mestamaker's having a great year, hitting 68% with 11-0 ratio. South Florida, of course, has played the much tougher schedule this year. They've already played ranked teams like Boise, Florida's, and Miami of Florida. North Texas hasn't. Now, if you follow North Texas, though, they're 2 different teams. On the road, they've struggled. At Western Michigan, at Army, both games went to overtime. They trailed most of the game against Western Michigan, led most of the game against Army, but both were in overtime. At home, dominant. They're beating teams by 38 points per game. So I like the home field edge here. I think North Texas and South Florida are close talent-wise. The home field edge tips me towards the mean green in this one.
All right, let's wrap up Friday night in Seattle. Washington hosting Rutgers in Husky Stadium. The Huskies able to survive the trip to Maryland and win. They did not cover. Phil, I think you were on the Terps last week. We talked about this on the show quite a bit, though. Washington really hard to beat at home. They did lose to the Buckeyes 2 weeks ago, but before that, it was back in 2021 or something like that for their last home loss. And I think we're all in agreement here that Ohio State's a pretty good football team. They are going to have to cover a double-digit spread against a Rutgers team coming off a bye. And before that, it was back-to-back losses, so you know they're going to be motivated. Also noticed the total in this one up near 60. I thought Greg Schiano, that's a defensive coach. That can't be right, but their lowest output all year was 28 points, and that was against Iowa. Phil, this should be a good game. Nice quarterback matchup, too. Damon Williams and Calic Manis for Rutgers. What do you like in this one?
Yeah, total wise, probably lean with the over in this one. For the
Okay.
fact, if you watch Rutgers, they coming up, Rutgers has always been a team where Greg Schiano has done things you want to do. You want to slow the game down, play good defense, play good special teams, win the game. Well, this year when I talked to Coach Schiano, we said we finally have a Big Ten offense, and they have. They're averaging 434 yards per game, nearly 40 points per game. So they've been scoring, but defensively, they're actually allowing foes 23 yards above their average. And if you do that with Washington, Washington comes in averaging about 450 yards per game. They'll get close to 500 yards. Now, the home field edge is big, but 2 factors going in Rutgers' favor. They're outstanding as an away dog under Schiano. I've got a record of 15-6-1. Schiano's also 8-0-1 against the spread coming off a bye. This is yet another opponent that Washington faces that's coming off a bye, a tough stretch for them. So I think in this game, my favorite play would probably be the over. I like over. Would you say the number was Strip?
I think 59.5 was
Yeah,
the last
That's what
I
I
saw.
see. Yeah.
yeah. I'll go with the over on that one.
I mean, listen, Rutgers made Iowa go over in a game, so you better believe the over is hitting, and we know how much we love to take Iowa unders, so we have to take the over in this one, guys. Come on now. All right, let's go to Saturday. We start off with a huge game in the Big Ten. Number 1, Ohio State at number 17, Illinois. The Buckeyes are favored at last check. I think it's 14.5. Yes, it's 14.5 for Big Noon kickoff. 5-0 at 5-1.
Kickoff.
12. That's right. Never forget. Always 12-15.
Very correct.
Phil, guys, I learned something about this game that I didn't know. There's actually a rivalry trophy for this game. It's the Battle for the Illabuck Trophy, which is a carved wooden turtle that is given to the winning team each year. It actually used to be a live turtle back in 1925 when this tradition first began.
On the line there.
A lot on the line, exactly. I think the Buckeyes defense is the focal point here, Phil. They still haven't allowed more than 10 points in a game this year. What do you think with the Buckeyes favored by 14.5 on the road?
Yeah, I think Ohio State matches up well with Illinois. Illinois has had some offensive line problems earlier in the year. At Indiana, at Duke, their offensive line got overwhelmed, but at home they've been much better. And the game they played against USC at home, the offensive line I think only allowed one TFL the entire game, and USC came in among the nation's leaders in TFLs. Defensively, the secondary's a little banged up, taking on Ohio State's great wide receivers. And of course, Julian Sand hitting 80%. But I think the game plan on the road tends to be a little conservative. Remember, Ohio State only led Washington by one score in the fourth quarter, then pulled away late in that one. And I like the way that Illinois came out and played USC. In the offseason, I thought Illinois had upset potential in this game. So I'm not going to completely overreact to that Indiana game. And I'm going to lean with Illinois plus the points in this one.
Okay. Let's jump to the SEC for the first time today. Alabama, everybody's singing their praises again. Boy, that didn't take long. They put week 1 behind them. They got revenge last week on Vanderbilt, but watch out. You got a noon kick this week in Como, and only a field goal favorite on the road at Missouri. That's an undefeated Mizzou team, 5-0. Here's the problem for Missouri. Schedule has been a little light. I give them credit for the Kansas win. I think Kansas is a good team. I like the Jayhawks. But South Carolina, we know they've really struggled on offense this year. So I don't think we view that win the way we thought we would view it earlier in the season. We're going to find out who the Tigers are over the next 3 weeks. They've got Bama Saturday, then road trips to Auburn, another road trip to Vandy. But another great quarterback battle here. Pretty interesting because Prebula wasn't even the full-time starter coming into this season. And Ty Simpson, who was this big question mark a month ago, now he looks like a Heisman contender. Phil, I think if you're going to find value on this one, would you probably lean Alabama here? Just land the field goal?
Yeah, I think statistically, if you look at the game, you're going to go with Missouri. They've got one of the better rush offenses in the country. Alabama's weakness on defense has been stopping the run. In fact, their lower level of the SEC in run defense gave up 6.9 yards per carry to Georgia, gave up 4.7 to Florida State, and Ahmad Hardy, one of the best running backs in the country, breaks a ton of tackles. But you hit it right on the head, Trip. Missouri hasn't played anybody. Alabama's played a vastly tougher schedule than has Missouri. They're battle tested. They went into Georgia, came out with a win. I think they're capable of coming out with a win here. They are going to have to figure a way to slow down Hardy, but I think they will. They've got the athletes in the defensive front seven to do so. Offensively, I like what Ty Simpson brings to the table. Getting Jam Miller back at running back, I think was huge these last 2 weeks. Love the way he runs the football. And then you look at the receiving core with Bernard and Williams. This is a very good Alabama team. So Alabama's basically in a win situation here on the road. They're not going to look past Missouri. The Tigers are 5-0, and I definitely like Alabama in this one.
All right, rolling from the SEC to the Big 12, we've got Cincinnati, who is approaching wagon watch, I believe, as they have rolled in a pair of impressive wins over Kansas and Iowa State the last 2 weeks. They're hosting UCF, who's headed in the opposite direction in the Big 12, Phil. Pair of back-to-back losses against the Kansas schools. For my money, Brendan Sorsby is the best quarterback in the Big 12 right now, and Cincinnati's got a 2-0 mark in the conference because of him. They're laying 10.5 at home against the Knights. Bearcats continue to roll?
Yeah, I like Cincinnati here. And you go back to UCF last week now. They led Kansas 14-0. They led them 20-14 at the half. In the late third quarter, their quarterback, Taven Jackson, goes out, and they struggled after that. They still had, I believe, a first and goal at the 1 yard line, down by 7 with a chance to tie the game. Got stopped on fourth and goal at the 1, got the ball back and throw an interception then after that. So they played a better game than the score would indicate against Kansas, a game they could easily have won last week. However, this is a Cincinnati team that I thought was one of the surprise teams in the Big 12 coming into the year. They've definitely played to that level. Their only loss has been to Nebraska. That one by 3 points on the road game. And I say on the road, even though it was technically a home game because the crowd was 95% Nebraska. So it really was a road game. But now they're at home. As you mentioned, Sorsby playing well. They've got 2 Big Ten running backs in Tyree Walker and Pryor. Those two, Pryor from Ohio State, Walker from Wisconsin, and they're playing like it. And then the receiving core is solid. Defensively, they're doing well. So I just think Cincinnati's a much better team at home. I'll take the Bearcats in this one.
Nice call there, Con, on the wagon watch for Cincinnati. You think they're a wagon? They are 4-1 against the spread, and only loss against the spread was to Bowling Green, where they were kind of in a blowout. Very, very nice, very observant. Let's talk about
Thanks a lot, Doctor.
one of the stranger games from last week. Pitt and BC. Phil, maybe you've got some more insight on this. Pitt announces before kickoff that they're going with true freshman Mason Heinchel at quarterback over Eli Holstein. I was seeing the line at Pitt -6.5. And then after the news comes out, I didn't really see the line move so much. So if you thought you were going to be slick and go grab BC because Pitt's playing a different quarterback, the joke was on you. The Panthers won by a smooth 41 points. It is going to be a tougher test this week, though. They're heading to Tallahassee. They've got to take on my Knowles, who should be a bit angry after back-to-back losses. I like the spot here for FSU, but Castellanos got to play better. He said as much. The decision-making, not the best over the last 2 weeks. So you've got angry FSU against a Pitt team with some momentum here, Phil. Who do you like?
Yeah, and be honest with you, when they announced that Heinzel was starting a quarterback, I'm like, what is Narduzzi doing? And then, as you mentioned, they totally dominated the game. Here's a stat for you. In the first half, Pitt had a 23-2 first down edge and blew away Boston College, won that thing 48-7 last week. However, as we've talked about on the show all year, quarterbacks making their first road start. You got a freshman quarterback, first road start. That's always dangerous. And Florida State can get after you. I like their defensive front seven. And you look at Florida State last week against Miami of Florida. You know, Florida State actually had 29 first downs to Miami's 14. Gave up a lot of big plays, but Pitt has been missing Desmond Reed. I think that's their big play guy. If he does play, he wouldn't be 100%. He's been missing a lot of action. And so I think a freshman quarterback going on the road against, as you correctly pointed out, what has to be an angry Florida State team. I like Florida State to win this one by a couple of touchdowns or more.
Phil, you've said it all year. Freshman quarterbacks on the road, their first start, not a good situation for them. So we'll see if that continues to play out against Florida State. The Big Ten continues to just have bangers this weekend, guys. And we got another one as we open up the 3:30 window. Number 7, Indiana at number 3, Oregon. Both these teams unblemished at 5-0. Ducks favored by 7.5 in Eugene, where they've won 18 in a row. So Homefield could be a decider in this one, as Indiana is 5-0 in back-to-back seasons for the first time in program history. Phil, betting this one could be really tough. Both these teams very strong against the spread, but maybe the over of 55.5 because the over has hit in 11 of Indiana's last 13 road games.
Yeah, that makes sense, David, because, I think if you look at Oregon, your biggest question mark has got to be the youth they have in the secondary. It's a younger secondary. They're playing some freshmen, and they're going up against Omar Cooper. They're going against Surratt, E.J. Williams, and, of course, Mendoza, a guy. Now, this is interesting. Mendoza has already got a start in Autzen Stadium when he was with Cal, and he has a 16-1 ratio this year. So I think Indiana will be able to put points up. Of course, Oregon's able to put points up on everybody. Went into whiteout conditions at Penn State and had 30 in that one. Dante Moore may be the best quarterback in the country at 14-1. So you've got two excellent quarterbacks. I have to agree with that. Might be the best bet in this game because picking against Oregon or picking against Indiana would be tough. I'll be honest with you. If this game is at Indiana, I'd probably have it at Pick'em. But since it's in Autzen Stadium, one of the toughest venues to play in the country, I'm actually going to go Oregon by 10 in this one. And the line being 7.5, I'm going to lean with Oregon, but over is probably your best play.
A tease up of the spread from Phil. I love it. Let's go.
Wow, very nice. What a 3:30 slate. How about we've got Red River coming up now? Red River, this game, lots of questions up in the air for the Sooners and the Longhorns. Is Mateer going to play? Is Texas any good at all? will Malik Muhammad play? Obviously, I think Mateer is the biggest of those questions, and Venables, as expected, he's kind of playing it a little close to the vest with all that info. I think Michael Hawkins would draw the start if Mateer can't go. He actually played in the meeting last year with Texas in place of Jackson Arnold. So we do know we expect two very good defenses to be on display. Totals around 42 here. I don't know if I like that number either, Phil, just because this game tends to get so crazy, and I think we do see a lot of overs in this game. But what do you know? Is there a side you're leaning with in this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna lean with the Sooners in this one, and regardless of who's at the quarterback position. Now the number had opened up at like 3, and has been steadily coming down. I think if it gets announced that Mateer's starting, I think it goes to Pick'em, maybe even Oklahoma -1. But here's the thing: Michael Hawkins didn't have a great game last year. They got blown out by Texas. But let's keep in mind that last year Oklahoma had a very inexperienced offensive line and one that was banged up and struggling. They were down their top 5 receivers coming into the game. And Texas, given the opportunity to stick one to Oklahoma, definitely stuck it to them last year. I think you correctly pointed out there's been a lot of years in this series where I've looked at 2 great defenses and thought under, and the game's gone over. So that would make me a little queasy going with the under, but it's really the way to look. I mean, both teams have great defenses, and both teams have question marks on offense. So I think if I was to play the total, I would play the under, but I think that was a really good point you made, Tripp, and made me think of some past years' games. But I think regardless of who starts a quarterback, if it's Mateer, great. If it's Hawkins, he's already started in this big rivalry game, something Arch Manning has not. And so I think he'd be better prepared with a better offensive line and receiving core. And Oklahoma is just playing extremely well. They're my number 1 surprise team in the country coming into the year. I think they're a playoff team. I'm going to go with Oklahoma to pull this one out right.
Phil,
All
we don't
right.
need you feeling queasy, okay? Did you need some more Diet Mountain Dew? Do we need to get an express shipment to the Phil Steele residence? Like, come on. We need you feeling right as rain. Especially for Saturday with all these games going on, all right? We got to make sure our...
It's only when Tripp's talking sometimes.
Shots fired. I love it.
Tend to make a lot of people nervous. So some of my selections here.
All right, staying at the 3:30 window, boys. Big 12 game, number 22, Iowa State at Colorado. Again, a couple of teams headed in opposite directions in the Big 12. Iowa State 2-1, Colorado 0-3. The Cyclones are looking to recover after that loss to Cincinnati. Colorado, they need a win so badly. They've blown 14-point leads in each of their last 2 losses. So the question is, can their offense churn the entire game against a depleted Iowa State secondary? And Phil, this line has teetered down a little bit. It was 4.5. Now it's 2.5 for Iowa State. What do you see here?
Yeah, and Colorado last week much closer than the final score against TCU. That thing is 21-21 in the fourth quarter, and TCU's punting. The punt goes off the back of the up man for Colorado, recovered for a fumble to get a touchdown. And then at the end of the game, Dykes was going to kick a field goal, and then he decides to go for a touchdown on the last play, and they get it, and they cover the spread. Wow, that was quite a spread covering win for TCU last week. I like the way Colorado's been playing, but here's the thing. Caden Salter's making some mistakes. I've seen some poor decision making and some interceptions at times. And going over the team with Coach Campbell after spring practice was over this year, he pointed out to me that last year they lost a ton of starters on the defensive side of the ball due to injuries, but they overcame that. and actually got to the Big 12 title game. Now, last week against Cincinnati was the first week without those two. It was really their top two defensive backs are both out for the year. And they were also missing, I think, 6 players from the defensive two deep. I think they'll be a little healthier this week. They're not getting back their top two corners. But when I talked to Campbell, he liked the overall depth they had in the secondary. So I think another week to get those guys ready for this one. Maybe the confusing 3-3-5 against Salter will get them some of those interceptions, and that's probably going to be the key to the game. Meanwhile, offensively, they moved the ball last week. They had 465 yards, 29 first downs. I like the way Rocco Beck's throwing it this year. He's got a 9-2 ratio. So I think Iowa State's a better team off a loss. And the spread, as you mentioned, they just basically have to win the game. I'm going to take Iowa State in this one.
All right, I'm going to go back-to-back ACC games here, Phil. We've got one matchup in Atlanta, Georgia Tech hosting Virginia Tech. Since Montgomery's taken over as head coach, they've won 2 out of 3. They did catch a loss last week at home to Wake as a touchdown favorite, but the Hokies, they did win this meeting 21-6 last season. There was no Haynes King in that one. I think he was injured. On the other side, Yellow Jackets off to a 5-0 start for the first time since 2014. That year, they actually made the ACC title game. They're off a bye, and the week before that, we saw that same Wake team. They had them on the ropes in Winston-Salem. I do think we'll see a good performance from the Jackets this week, but the line has crept up to over 2 touchdowns. I'm not sure I like them that much.
Yeah, and this one, Trip, when I looked at it at the start of the week on Monday, my gut reaction was, okay, Virginia Tech had sort of a must-win situation last week against Wake Forest. You figured if they lose to Wake Forest with what they have coming up on the schedule, this team's probably not going to get to a bowl game. So my original reaction was, hey, they lost to Wake. They're done. They're cooked. But the more I looked at the game, I actually like Virginia Tech plus the points for a couple of reasons. First of all, go back to the Wake Forest game. They're up 14-10. It's just before the half. They force Wake to kick a field goal with 2 minutes left in the half. But there's a late hit out of bounds. So they get a first down. Wake actually scores a touchdown. Then in the last 2 minutes, Virginia Tech throws a couple passes, doesn't run any time off the clock, punts. Wake scores another touchdown, takes the lead before half, and beats them. So I thought they played a good game last week. Had that not happened at the end of the half, had the late hit not penalty had not happened, probably would have been leading at the half, maybe have won the game. So they're not a team that's quit, despite the interim head coach. Now, if you follow Georgia Tech, you know that Brent Key is unbeatable as an underdog against ranked ACC teams. He not only covers those games, he wins them outright. However, make him a big favorite, i.e. Wake Forest, Temple the week before. They just don't cover. They struggle in those games, and now they're a 2-touchdown favorite in this game. And then you go back and look at the series. The home team is actually 2-11 against the spread the last 13. And in the last 10 meetings, there have been 8 outright upsets in the last 10 meetings. That's at 80% of the time there's an outright upset. For, as you mentioned, Virginia Tech beat them last year. And then here's another tricky thing. I went back and looked up Tulsa's record under Philip Montgomery as an away dog, and they were like 23-8 as an away dog. And guess what? They were an away dog at NC State under Philip Montgomery this year and outgained them 406-290 and pulled the upset. So after getting all that data while I'm researching the game, I actually like Virginia Tech plus the 14.5 here.
All right. The chat agrees with you, Phil. Darrell says it's either a Georgia Tech money line or no bet at all for him in this game. So that's good stuff there. Let's keep it in the ACC. We're talking about Wake Forest. So let's look at their game coming up in Corvallis against Oregon State. Firstly, I'll say I think Jake Dickert was a home run hire for the Deacs. I mean, he's bringing so much energy into that program right now. I think we've got to take them seriously again. They're 3-2. They could easily be 4-1. So they're above expectations right now. Speaking of Dickert, he's got some familiarity with Oregon State. He's been at Washington State for the last few years in the Pac-2, as we called it last year. He's seen these guys before, and he knows what a tall task it's going to be to win in Research Stadium. Well, at least it used to be. Oregon State is off to their worst start that I can remember, 0-6. They did beat Dickert last year. I think that was actually their last home win. But the Beavers are desperate here. They're getting a field goal at home. They've already struck out with me, Phil. I'm not touching this. I'm not even going to bet against them anymore because they burned me in the Houston game too. What do you like in this one?
Yeah, I'm actually going to lean with Oregon State in this. And while they're 0-6, let's keep in mind they've played one of the nation's toughest schedules. Start with Cal, better than we thought. Cal team, Fresno State, a team that's only lost one game this year. Texas Tech on the road, Oregon on the road. Those are two of the top teams in the country. Texas Tech, the Big 12 favorite. Oregon, one of the best teams. Then, as you mentioned, Houston, which came in 4-0, and then even last week they had to travel across the country, play App State, and at the end of the game they're down 27-23. But I think they were down inside the App State 10-yard line at the end of the game with the chance to win that one outright. So they haven't stopped playing. You know, Malik Murphy has a 9-7 ratio this year, pretty much what you'd expect out of him coming over from Duke. But this is a long trip across the country for Wake. They're off a big upset win on the road. And as mentioned, they got a break right before halftime, which really turned that game around last week. And, Wake's, of course, in the middle of the ACC schedule. So just the fact it's a cross-country trip, we've seen that affect some teams. I'm going to lean a little bit with Oregon State. But, as you mentioned, Tripp, you're not going to put a lot of money on Oregon State, especially after what they did at the start of the year.
All right, back to the Big Ten. It's still in the 3:30 window. Two very stout defenses meet in College Park as Nebraska heads to Maryland. The Cornhuskers lead the nation in pass defense. Maryland continues to lead the Big Ten in sacks, Phil, as you quizzed us on last week, and luckily we both knew the answer. But the Terps need a get-right after coughing up that game to Washington last weekend, and currently it's Nebraska laying less than just a little under a touchdown at 6.5 on the road at Maryland, and a low total, 48.5. Where's the side here, Phil?
I'm going to lean with Nebraska, and here's why. I had Maryland last week. I thought they were going to win outright. It was 20-0. It was 20-3 after three quarters. And you go into the fourth quarter of the game. Now, if you're up 20-3, what do? You run the ball a little bit, take some time off the clock, right? How many runs did Maryland have in the fourth quarter? Give you guys a guess here.
Oh boy! I didn't watch much of this game last week because I was at a wedding. I have no idea.
You're teasing this for a very low number here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with like 4.
Tripp?
2.
Yeah, 1. They ran the ball once in the fourth quarter, trying to protect a 20-3 lead. Yeah, how does that happen? And so that tells me that they don't have a lot of faith in the run game. And if you don't have a lot of faith in the run game, you've got Malik Washington throwing the football against what you correctly pointed out, David, which is one of the top pass defenses in the country. Nebraska's given up 1 touchdown pass all year. They're number 2 in my pass D rankings. They can get pressure on the quarterback. They've got a great secondary. And then on the flip side of the coin, I like what Dylan Rail is doing. Last year he went through his freshman learning year, and this year he's got a 12-2 ratio. They're starting to run the football. And Emmett Johnson, remember when Holgorsen took over at the end of last year, Emmett Johnson averaged over 100 yards per game with Holgorsen as the offensive coordinator. This year he's got 474 yards rushing in 5 games, which is almost 100 yards a game still. So they've got balance. They're more of a passing team, but they can run the ball with Emmett Johnson. And I just like the matchup in Nebraska's pass defense against a team that evidently has no confidence running the football.
Another interesting matchup for you, Phil, as we close out the 3:30 window. Big 12 game, TCU at Kansas State. And Phil, I've mentioned this all year, I want to love TCU, all right? I want to hold Josh Hoover close and say, you're my guy, all right? Just carry TCU to the promised land. But I can't because they are just so mind-numbingly annoying in terms of covering whenever you pick them, except for week 1 against North Carolina. But North Carolina's in shambles. Bill Belichick might be gone next week. Who knows? Anyways, that doesn't matter. TCU at Kansas State. The Horned Frogs needed a huge fourth quarter comeback last week to beat Colorado. Josh Hoover still looked good, 5 touchdowns, and their offense got healthier. Eric McAllister came back. Meanwhile, Kansas State, they blew a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter. So exact opposite results. But all 4 of their losses, they're 2-4, they've come by 1 score. TCU's favored by 1.5 in the Little Apple. I have no earthly idea how to pick this game. I think it's a popcorn game. Like you've said, you just sit back and watch it and enjoy the action. What do you think, Phil?
I think the team wearing purple is going to win this one.
That's a good pick.
Great pick.
But when you look at this matchup, I think you said it correctly, David. It's one that I really have no pick on, because when you look at TCU this year, they've shown glimpses. How about the fourth quarter against SMU? You look at the Hoover to McAllister combination for those two late touchdowns, the lead over Arizona State. But last week they didn't impress me, as mentioned. Tie game in the fourth quarter and they're punting and somehow win by 14. Now K State, that was at the end of the game. It was K-State kicks a field goal, Baylor kicks a field goal, K-State misses a field goal. Had they won that game, they'd have one Big 12 loss this year, that being to Iowa State, and they'd be back. They survived the Ireland thing. We saw last year how it affected Florida State. Tripp can tell you about that firsthand. And they went 1-3 in their post-Ireland, or went into 4 games with the Ireland thing, and then they beat UCF by 14. And had they beat Baylor, you'd be really high on them. But this is the same team that also had just 8 first downs against Arizona. Now, David, I know you don't like the game. I don't like the game. We're going to let Tripp pick it.
Great.
You're going to let me pick it? I don't really like the game either, so I'll let one of our people in the chat pick it, and the last pick I see is TCU rolls. Chat likes TCU here. The chat also agrees with you, Phil, on Nebraska. I've seen a couple of Nebraska overs come in there as well.
Good point on Dylan Edwards
being
being out, so that hurts.
What's that, David?
Good point on Dylan Edwards being out for Kansas State from the chat, too.
Yeah. All right, one last afternoon start before we head to the evening session. We got Arkansas on the road at Tennessee. Hogs fired their coach, Sam Pittman, after the Notre Dame loss. They've had a bye week for Bobby Petrino to take over. Apparently, he let go of 3 of the defensive coaches, so some pretty big shakeups with the Razorbacks. Arkansas upset Tennessee last season as a big underdog. They've actually taken the last 4 in this series. The Vols, their last time out, they were on upset alert. The Mississippi State game, we've talked about that. They escaped. They're 4-1 on the year. They're laying 12.5 at home. Phil, what do you think? Can they slow down Talon Green? He's leading the entire country in yards per game, 367. And the total, by the way, 68.5. I don't know if that's high enough. We've got another great quarterback matchup here.
Yeah, I'd probably lean with you over in this one. As you mentioned, Arkansas to me is a pure over team. Talon Green, very dangerous. And that goes back to about the 5th game last year. I think he had a negative ratio in the first 5 games under Bobby Petrino. Since then, he's been outstanding. 12-5 ratio this year. They're explosive on offense, but it can't stop anybody on defense. And going through all this change, I'm going to lean with Tennessee minus the 12.5. I think they're the better team at home, playing with revenge. And my question marks with Tennessee coming into the year was they basically lost their entire offense from last season. They lost their rusher, set the career or single season record with 1,493 yards rushing. But I like what Bishop and Star Thomas and Lewis are doing at running back. Aguilar at QB has been an upgrade over what Nico was last year. He's got a 13-5 ratio, hits the deep ball better. And Brazel at wide receiver is one of the best in the country. Offensive line has allowed just 4 sacks all year. Defensively, they've got talent. So I think at home with revenge. And I'll tell you what, had Arkansas had Sam Pittman as the head coach here, I would lean with Arkansas plus the points, because Pittman was one of the best coaches, is a double-digit dog, keeping those games to 3 points or even pulling upsets. But I don't know if Petrino can do that. I'm going to lean with Tennessee minus the points.
All right, big one in the SEC, because we are talking about the Florida Gators, who might be back, guys. They might just be back. Florida at number 5, Texas A&M. All I got to say about the Gators is, hello, Dallas Wilson. Welcome back.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah,
holy smokes. They looked like a different team last week against Texas. A welcome sign to have Dallas Wilson back. Florida, though, Phil, has played a gauntlet of a schedule. This is their 4th consecutive ranked opponent that they're going to be facing when they face undefeated number 5 Texas A&M in College Station. Florida getting 7.5 on the road at Texas A&M, who I know is your number 2 surprise team in the country. And so far, they've been really good for you there. But Florida's 6-1 against the spread in their last 7. So where's the lean here, Phil?
Great call on the Dallas Wilson thing, because I thought that was a massive impact to Florida's offense last week. He is a dynamic receiver that missed the first 4 games, and his return was huge. 457 yards against Texas. I tell you what, If you gave me a total of 400 yards for Florida in that game, I probably wouldn't have a house right now because I would have bet it all on Texas slowing them down. That was really come out of the blue. You just didn't expect that from Florida. We know they have a good defense with Florida. They're holding opponents to 82 yards per game below their average. As long as DJ Langway's not throwing interceptions like he did against LSU, I think it's a really good team. Remember, when they went into LSU, they had 23 first downs to just 10 for LSU. So I would not bet against Florida here. However, this is a really good Texas A&M team and one of the most complete teams in the country. They've got a ton of VHT running backs: Moss, Owens, Daniels. They've got a Marcel Reed who's got an 11-3 ratio. They've got a receiving core that's been upgraded with the addition of KC Concepcion to go along with Mario Craver. As mentioned before, when I talked to Coach Elko last year about the offensive line, he said they were middle of the road to the SEC. This year, he said they're one of the best in the SEC, and they are. They're only allowing 7 sacks, and they've got 4.9 yards per carry. Defensively, they get after the quarterback with 18 sacks. They're solid in the pass defense, run defense. They really are a complete team. They're at home, and they're playing in College Station. Now, in some games, they've struggled to get margin. You go back to that Auburn game, completely dominated the Auburn game. Probably should have won it by 3 touchdowns. Ended up only winning it by 6 somehow, which was ridiculous. So I think if you force me to bet on the game, I take Florida plus the points. But to me, this is 2 teams you don't want to go against.
All right, let's go back to the Big Ten where the Iowa-Wisconsin total is falling like the leaves off the trees here in North Carolina in October. I think it was 37 and a half earlier
Wow.
this week. Now I'm seeing 35 and a half.
What?
Here's why. And Phil, this is why we've got to talk to you to get the information we need here. Neither team obviously not known for their offense. But on top of that, we don't know who's going to be playing quarterback for either side. Gronowski left the game 2 weeks ago with a knee injury. I think maybe he's going to be back, but I haven't seen that confirmed yet. We'll have to wait and see there. And we saw Hunter Simmons last week throw for about 12 yards against Michigan. I'm kidding. It was 177 yards. They did get the cover at Michigan, so we got to give Simmons some credit for that. But both these teams defensively very good against the run. Are we going to see them turn these quarterbacks loose a little bit? And if they do, does that just mean more turnovers? I'll give you a pick here, Phil. I'm taking Iowa to cover. Final score 9-3.
Wow. That is so Iowa and the under, says Tripp.
Always.
I think the question mark is definitely there with Gronowski. Will he play or won't he play? Because I think there is a drop off between he and Hank Brown. When Brown came in against Indiana, it was different. They could very well have upset Indiana in that game, maybe if Gronowski played the entire one. I really liked what I saw to Hunter Simmons, especially on the first drive of the game when they took it right down the field and scored a touchdown. After that, they pretty much struggled. Michigan had a couple chances to get that cover in it, but this is a circle the wagons game, I think, for Wisconsin. They've got Ohio State, Oregon, Washington, Indiana, Illinois, and then they finish off with a light one at Minnesota. It's the toughest schedule in the country. I think it will be a low-scoring game, which has me taken to 3.5 because I think it might be decided by a field goal. And it wouldn't surprise me if Wisconsin won this outright. I think they're a better team than the scores would indicate this year because of the competition they face.
All right, well let's jump to a game where we probably will see a few more points here. It's a very good one in the Big 12 in Lubbock on Saturday night. Texas Tech, they've got Kansas in town, laying a couple of touchdowns here. Jalen Daniels back from his back to kind of the form from a couple of seasons ago. 16-2 ratio. He's got Emmanuel Henderson out there leading the conference in receiving. But they're going to face a very stout Tech defense here. That defense has shut down Dampier from Utah, Wegman from Houston. They only gave up a combined 21 in both of those contests. Their coach said they're going to be up for this one. They know the Jayhawks could easily be a 6-0 team, if not for a couple of really close losses. But the Red Raiders have owned this series. They've won the last 4 and I think 9 of the last 10.
And is Iowa Wisconsin going to be one of your best bets, Tripp?
Oh, always. I mean, if I was playing football, I'm on the under.
Just making sure. Yeah, this is a matchup where I clearly like Tech. Like I said, I watched Kansas last week. they could easily have lost to UCF. I think UCF just didn't put them away and then lost their quarterback. Texas Tech's defense, as you mentioned, Trip, has been dominant, holding opponents 173 yards below their average. And then you look at them offensively, they're averaging nearly 200 yards above what opponents come in averaging. If they can go into Utah and win by 24, they're taking on a Kansas team, which is good. And I like Jalen Daniels, but they're not great this year. And like mentioned, they could easily have lost to UCF last week. So I think the spread's cheap. My computer's got Texas Tech winning this by like 22, 23 points. They're only laying 14. I'll take Texas Tech minus the points here.
I'm going to kiss the lucky stars that are Texas Tech because they hit that first half 6.5 spread last week that we brought up. So I finally got a hit.
I was going to
Nice
say,
job.
if you want
Nice
to know
job,
why
David.
David's in New Orleans this week, he was bragging too much about his Texas Tech bet last week. We had to send him away.
No. All right. Here we go, Phil. 7:30 kick in the SEC. Number 10, Georgia at Auburn. Georgia has dominated this series. They've won the last 8 meetings, but Auburn's last 5 wins against Georgia have all come at home, where they are 2-0 at Jordan-Hare this season. Really interested to see how Jackson Arnold can possibly take advantage of Georgia through the air, because the Bulldogs' pass defense has been a little suspect here. What do you see here with Georgia favored by 3.5 on the road?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what Georgia does defensively, because if you look at their defense so far this year, they only have 6 sacks, and that's in 5 games. So they're not getting a lot of pressure on the opposing quarterback. And that's really been Auburn's weakness. They've allowed 15 sacks the last 2 games. And, I think the key to slowing down Jackson Arnold and protecting your secondary is getting some pressure on him. I think their defense will find a way to do it. I like the athletes they have there in the defensive front 7. I like their defensive coordinator. I like Kirby Smart. So I think they'll figure out a way to get that pressure on him. Offensively, Gunnar Stockton, the question is he a gunner or a runner? Because he's a guy that can hurt you with both his legs and his arm. I think he'll have a good game here against Auburn's defense. And this is an Auburn team that, like I mentioned, against Texas A&M, they probably could have lost by 21 points there. The Oklahoma game, they failed to crack 300 yards. And so I'm looking for Georgia to have a really good effort here. In fact, I'm looking for Georgia to run the table the rest of the year and finish top the SEC. So watch, the spread's cheap at 3.5 or 3 for this one. I'm taking Georgia.
All right, folks, you heard it here first. Money in on Georgia. Chips. Push them into the middle of the table. Phil's ready to call it. Georgia run the table the rest of the year. All right. Another one where regular season. Excuse me. Regular season. Get to the SEC title game. Let's not go full bore on the national championship here, folks. Not there yet. All right. Phil, this is a game coming up that I just really think we're going to learn a lot about both teams. All right. Number 15, Michigan at USC. How does USC recover from that loss to Illinois? How does Michigan's defense handle Jaden Mayava? Heck, how does USC's defense contain Justice Haynes? Like there's so many big question marks here. USC at home by 2.5 is the line. So basically it's home team by 3. It's the casual line. Vegas probably didn't know what to do with this one either, so they threw out the carbon copy pick. What do you see here?
Yeah, I'm going to lean with USC minus the points in this one. There's a lot of 2.5s out there. I would definitely try to get 2.5. I think it's going to be a great football game. Now, Michigan's going to come out and do the same thing they did in Nebraska. We just dominate the line of scrimmage, run the football. But the thing with USC is they're not your typical USC team that they had been the past couple of years. They're bigger in the defensive front and tougher against the run. And their offensive line is actually really good. I think they're capable of competing against this Michigan defensive line. So normally I would call for Michigan to have the line of scrimmage edge, but I don't think they do here. Skill player-wise, I'm going to give it to USC. Much more explosive at receiver with Lemon and Lane and McCray. I love the way and you look at the running backs. Wayman Jordan's averaging 7.6 yards per carry. And go back to last year's game. It was in the Big House, and USC pretty much had the game won. They were up by 4, I believe, and it was couple minutes to go in the game. Michigan's offense had been doing nothing, and then Michigan got one big run for a 61-yard run, and then they converted on 4th and 1 for a touchdown, both by Mullins, and pulled out the win. But USC's playing with legitimate revenge. They're at home, and if you follow USC, they're 1-13, 1-14 when they make trips to the Eastern or Central time zone, but at home they're 6-1 against the spread as a home favorite. So I think the USC plays better at home. I like the Trojans in this one.
All right. The chat likes Texas Tech. The chat likes Georgia. Danny says he's going to roll with Con again with a first half Texas Tech bet this week.
I've created a monster.
Gaining some fans there, Admiral. All right. Let's go back to the ACC. Phil, you called it last week. We finally got a glimpse of what we thought we'd see from Clemson from the jump this year. 28 first quarter points in Chapel Hill last week. They didn't do much after that because they didn't need to. Looks like they're laying about the same number. Right now, I'm seeing 13 and a half. I think yesterday I saw 14 and a half. On the road at BC, who we mentioned earlier, they got blown out against Pitt last week. Do you think the Tigers can keep it rolling here?
Yeah, you don't want to overreact to one game because prior to that, well, Boston College has lost 4 in a row. I thought they outplayed Michigan State on the road. They led Stanford 20-10 late second quarter. And California, they lost to at home, but that one could have easily have gone either way. So they were playing good football. Dylan Longeran has got a 9-3 ratio this year. And Turbo Richard is a dangerous running back, averaging 5.2 yards per carry. But once again, 2 first downs in the first half against Pitt. You wonder what's going on there. Defensively, they gave over 500 yards to a freshman quarterback making his first start. And Clemson, they just need to start playing like Clemson, the Clemson we thought they would at the start of the year. They've got the talent. They've got the offensive line. They've got the receiving core. They've got Adam Randall at running back. They've got Gideon Davidson, who haven't unleashed him yet. May have a good performance here. And then, of course, Klubnik at QB. Tom Allen has struggled to get this defense to play to its talent level, but they played better last week against North Carolina. I think they will continue to grow. So I'm thinking we're gonna hop on Clemson early now and watch them go on a nice spread streak. I like Clemson minus the points.
Clemson certainly showed up last weekend in Chapel Hill, as you called for, Phil. They took care of those North Carolina Tar Heels, and it was not even close. All right, in the 7:45 window, South Carolina at number 11 LSU. Both these teams coming off bye weeks, but they both kind of seem largely one-dimensional, right? Neither of them are really having any success running the football, and LSU's got the better pass defense, so that's probably why they're favored by 9.5 in Death Valley. What you got here, Phil?
Yeah, and last year I thought South Carolina was the better team. Should have won the game. I mean, if Lenore Sellers doesn't go out in the second quarter, they don't get called for that penalty, blocking a quarterback on an interception return for a touchdown, and all the penalties that were called on South Carolina in the game, they should have won. They're playing with legitimate revenge. Frankly, I've been more impressed with Lenore Sellers than I have Garrett Nussmeier this year. You wonder if there's something wrong with Nussmeier. LSU doesn't even attempt to run the football at times, which I think is not good, but of course South Carolina's not running it in great shakes either. I do think LSU's got the better defense. They're at home. It's Death Valley. They should be able to win this one. Wouldn't be one of my favorite plays of the week, but I think if you're going to play the game, I've been, South Carolina's a team that I was down on at the start of the year. I picked them lower than most in the SEC just because I didn't think they were that playoff type of contending team after losing the majority of their front seven. LSU, wow, against Mississippi, they were out first down 28-16. You wonder a little bit there, but I'm gonna lean with LSU minus the 9.5. I think if it was a closer to 2 touchdowns, I'd lean South Carolina. So should be a good game.
Yeah, you do wonder if Nussmeier is still dealing with that abdominal strain that he had before the start of the season, and that might be affecting his play. All right, Phil, we're starting to get late night. Couple games left. 8:00 kick out west in the desert. Number 18 BYU at Arizona. BYU still unbeaten at 5-0 after their win over West Virginia, though they didn't cover. The back door was left open, and West Virginia took it, unfortunately, for those bettors on BYU. Really good quarterback battle here, though, with Bear Bachmeier and Noah Fafita. I think Bachmeier is going to be challenged even more to own the ground game because Arizona has such a strong pass defense. Currently, it's BYU favored by 1.5 at Arizona. The trends here, though, say take the over. Arizona's hit that in 4 of their last 5. What do you got here, Phil?
I like Arizona, plus the points here. If I was making the line, I probably would have had Arizona a 3-point favorite in the game. Watching BYU this year, they've been good. They haven't been great. And watching Arizona this year, they're a much better team at home than they are on the road. And so you go back to the Kansas State game, for example. While they only won the game by 6, they had a 21-8 first down edge. K-State got one long play and then a fumbled punt return for the other score. Other than that, Arizona completely dominated the game. I think Arizona's probably the better team at home. So I think the wrong team's favored in this one. I'm going to take Arizona.
All right, we've got one last game to get to. Another great Big 12 game to wrap things up on Saturday. Utah hosting Arizona State. Both these teams off a bye. It's going to have some big time ramifications in the Big 12 race. And the Utes, they've already got one conference loss on their resume. So, they're going to be trying to protect their home turf. The Sun Devils won this game last year. I think Scatabo, this is the one where he broke off a big run to seal the deal. But I think it was pretty close yardage wise in that game last season. And Utah actually out first down Arizona State in this one. Should be a good game here, Phil. Another good quarterback matchup. I still like Sam Levitt. What do you like here?
Yeah, and I think in last year's game when these two played, it was the game where Cam Wright came off of injury and tried to play, and
Yeah.
he couldn't freaking complete a pass. He was throwing the ball in the dirt most of the game. I think they're better off at the quarterback position this year. They're at home playing with legitimate revenge. Dampier concerns me a little with what Texas Tech's defense did to them, but I don't put Arizona State's defense at the same level at Texas Tech at this point. And Arizona State could easily have lost to Baylor. They got 3 turnovers turned into field goals. They pulled out a 3-point win. They could easily have lost to TCU. They trailed them in the Gorgeous game. They did lose to Mississippi State. I got to think Utah, with all the stuff they have on defense, the offensive line, with Dampier at quarterback, I'm going to take the Utes. I'm surprised the number's 5.5. I thought it'd be closer to 3. I thought the public would be on Arizona State here, but I like Utah at home and Rice Eccles with Muss behind them.
Yeah, hard to go against Utah at home. All right, that's the games for this week. Phil, we mentioned earlier your top 3. If we're going 4-2, or we could be 5-0-1, or you could be who knows what we could be, depending on what number you've had over the last couple of weeks. But the picks have been good. What's your top 3 plays for week 7?
Let's try to pick some that aren't as close to the spread, huh? Let's
Okay.
pick some big winners. And speaking of big winners, let's go with Texas Tech. As mentioned, I think 3 touchdowns. It shouldn't be anywhere near the spread. Let's go with Oklahoma over Texas. I don't think you have to worry about the spread there. As long as Oklahoma wins the game, I think you win against the spread. And then the other one, I gave you a Stephen Hartzell special last week. Remember?
Akron.
I do a podcast every week on Learfield with Stephen Hartzell, Wayne Cook. He always asks me for a nondescript game. I brought up a nondescript game, and it is Kent State -2.5 over UMass. I'm sure this is the one that's on. If you flip on ESPN, they're probably talking about that game right now, right?
Yeah.
And if you want to get the complete details why I like Kent State, check out that podcast on Learfield.
That's good. Just go a couple shows back on your podcast feed for College Sports Now. Phil, we appreciate your time as always. You want to tell all the listeners what's going on at philsteele.com this week?
Yeah, I got the Phil Steele Plus Tour with selections up and available right now. You get 5 free selections, 6 quick hitters. The quick hitters have gone 8-2 the last 2 weeks, so make sure you hop on those as well. And then also an NFL play. So you get 5 selections, 6 quick hitters, and an NFL play, all free. Just take the Phil Steele Plus Tour.
Sounds good. DK, all right, do you have one pick for us? You hit last week,
did.
Texas Tech, first half. No problem. You going to ride with the Red Raiders again?
No, I'm not, actually. I'm going to leave that alone.
Okay.
I'm going to straight up pick North Texas.
North Texas.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay. Is that a
It's a
pick 'em
pick 'em.
game
There's
right
no
now?
line. North Texas is going to win. That's all I got. North Texas is going to win. Also, Phil, I did listen to that podcast, and I heard all the analysis you have on Kent State, and I loved every second of it. I'm not going to bet it, but I love the analysis. It was fantastic.
I'm going to bet. Hey, if you've learned anything over the last 4 seasons of us doing this show, when we talk about 30 games and we get to Phil's top 3 and he pulls one out that we didn't talk about, there's a pretty good ratio.
It's not because it's not going to hit.
losses.
It's going to hit. I'm just too much of a scaredy cat to bet on the Mid-American Conference, all right? Okay. This has nothing to do with Phil. This has everything to do with me. But I will bet on the American, and I will take North Texas to take down South Florida tomorrow night. You heard it here on the Phil Steele Show.
All right.
And Trip, what do you got?
Well, I think I'm just going to roll with Iowa in a really low scoring game. You
Take
know
the
what?
under.
I'll take the
Take the
Iowa
under.
under,
Yes.
as I always do. And it's 35.5 right now. Don't be surprised if it's down to like 12 by the time they kick off that game in a couple of days. All right, David, real quick, can you give us one more hit on Homefield apparel?
Well, I could always talk about Homefield Apparel, Trip. They have quality, thoughtful apparel for more than 190 colleges and universities across the entire landscape of college athletics. I'm repping my Tulane shirt right now. It's very nice, very cool design, very comfortable. Trip's wearing a Florida State hoodie. So you can get schools from all over, from the American to the ACC, and all points in between. So go to homefieldapparel.com. Use the code PHIL15 for 15% off your order. They're dropping varsity jackets tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern for 15 select schools. Go back earlier in the show. If you missed that, it was right at the top of the show. So go check those out, and go check out our friends at homefieldapparel.com.
All right, that's the show for week 7. I appreciate everybody tuning in, everybody watching on YouTube. We will be back next week, 11 a.m. Eastern time, for the next week 8 edition of the Phil Steele Show. Catch you guys next week.